everyone, and welcome. I'm Gary Null, and we're here to talk about health and nutrition. Each week at this time, you and I meet to share ideas on how we can become healthier, especially in a world that's polluted, where we don't always have the most appropriate response to stress, and that can play an impact upon our body. Maybe not always eating exactly what you should, but there's a way of understanding how to look at food, how to look at our environment, how to look at our minds, how to look at exercise as coming together to create a very dynamic person. That's you. And that's what I'm here for. To put 10, 20, 30 years extra onto your life, to take the weight off and get you feeling better. One way of doing that is through exercise. Now, I know what you're going to say. You don't have time for it. Well, you don't have to be an Arnold Schwarzenegger. You don't have to be a Bill Rogers. You don't have to go out and run marathons or lift weights. And a lot of you probably are not doing that because you figure, well, at your age and the way you look, you don't want to go to the health club. Not to worry. Peter Roth is an exercise expert. Peter Roth is concerned about how you feel, how you look, and he's going to show you one aspect that you just never hear about when it comes to calisthenics or some type of aerobic, and that is the importance of stretching and what you can do specifically for those abdominal muscles. Welcome to the program, Peter.
Thank you, Gary.
Peter, a lot of people are fearful of exercise. They've gotten into a sedentary lifestyle. What we'd like to do is shake them out of that and show them what they can do and what they should know, some of the little tricks of making a difference in whether they will keep with an exercise program or not.
Our bodies seem to deteriorate with age. Unless we work on building them back up, they're going to fall apart. What we've got to do is go after those key elements that allow us to fall apart faster and to reverse that process. It gives us a better sense of mind. If we can sit straighter, walk straighter, feel better about lifting things or stooping down, even climbing stairs. There are a lot of things that we need for our bodies just to get through daily life physically with our muscles. And a lot of that isn't with us anymore. And the older we get, if we're not exercising, we can lose it all. And the least amount of exercise creates more deterioration. So I want to start with a little bit at a time, because if people can strengthen their bodies, get better posture, better alignment, they'll feel better about themselves. And all of a sudden they'll look at themselves and say, gee, I look a little bit better. What can I do to look even better? It's a growing process. So there are some key elements. The most important exercise that anybody can do is for their stomachs, is to strengthen their stomachs. Why? Because it's your stomach that really holds you up. Now everybody will say, well, it's not really. It's the back. The back really holds you up straight. Well, it's true that the back is where your spine is, and the bones are what hold you together, but it's the muscles that hold the bones together and allow the bones to move smoothly through their range of motion. If we strengthen the stomach, we can support the rest of our body better. And let me show you how that works. The stomach has only one function. See, most people who do sit-ups really mistake what the stomach is doing. All the stomach does is it brings the pelvis closer to the front of the rib cage, like that. The stomach, when it's strong, is tight, and it shortens a bit, and it brings you like this. Now, if the stomach isn't strong, you get a pot belly, or you have an arched back. You have a kind of distended look, and it creates all kinds of back problems. So in order to keep your back straight, you want to keep the pelvis closer to the rib cage. That's what stomach exercises are for, and that's why it helps to keep your back strong. Because when as I said, when your stomach is out, your back is curved, loses its strength, and you're in a lot of trouble. So what are the best ways to strengthen the stomach? Well, most people who do sit-ups, they're not doing really a stomach exercise so much as they're doing a hip flexor exercise. Sit-ups, actually, the way most people do them, bring this part of the body, the torso, closer to your knees. So when you're doing sit-ups, I can show you by line on the floor.
Yeah, actually show us here. Now go through this slowly so
Right.
everyone can have a chance to see what you're doing.
Now, most people who do sit-ups will hold their hands behind their head. For one thing, that's inappropriate because that's going to be stretching the ligaments of the neck. It could cause some neck problems. It's better actually to put your hands on your shoulders or across your chest. Now, the normal sit-up is up like this and back. Now, that's not really a stomach exercise. That's strengthening the muscles that bring your torso closer to your knees. Those are the muscles in your hips. They're the upper quadriceps, the psoas muscle, the iliacus muscle, the tensor fasciae lata. Those are all synergistic muscles that work together. Now, the problem with that, there are two problems. One is that it's not strengthening your stomach muscles as such, even though your stomach muscles are part of that. But it strengthens this psoas muscle. That's a muscle that goes from the front of the hip through the pelvis to the back of the spine and attaches to the vertebrae at the bottom of the spine, the lumbar vertebrae. And that's the muscle that allows the curvature of the back to maintain the proper arch. If that psoas muscle gets too tight, that arch gets tighter and you end up with a back problem. If that psoas muscle is too weak, the back straightens too much, and again you have a back problem because the back needs to have curvature for the proper movement of the spine. If the spine is too straight, every time you walk you're going to be jamming it. It's the curvature that helps. It's a dynamic alignment of the vertebrae. In order to maintain that dynamic alignment of the vertebrae, you want to keep that psoas muscle just so tight. If it's too tight, you're in trouble. Now, regular sit-ups tighten that psoas muscle, and they shorten it. And there's no way to lengthen it. There's really not a stretch for the psoas muscle. So what you end up with is a back that has problems because it's too tight. Now, a long time ago, maybe 10 years ago, we started hearing that you shouldn't do straight leg sit-ups. And the reasoning was that it uses too much of the hip flexors, and it causes that psoas to become too tight. So everybody started to do bent knee sit-ups. Well, that's fine, except that what does everybody do? Most people will have someone hold their feet down, or they put their foot under some furniture. And then it's easy to do a sit-up because their feet are held down. But all they're using are the hip flexors. So we want to get away from using those hip flexors and back to the stomach muscles. Well, how do you do that? How do you isolate just the abdominal muscles? The best way to do that is to come up this far and back. Because all you need to do is shorten that stomach muscle and move through the range of motion of the abdominals. And that is the range of motion. Once you start coming up here, all you're doing is using the hip flexors. So you might as well just stay in that area that only uses the stomach muscle. I've worked with many elite athletes who have done sit-ups for years, hundreds a day. And I say, okay, now just lie down and do 35 of these. And they go, oh, nothing to it. And they start, and after about 7 or 8, they start feeling a burning in their stomach. And after about 10 or 15, they go, oh my God. And they stop after about 20 or 25. They can't do 30 so easily. So it's really tough to do that, even though it looks so simple. And for people starting out, they could start out doing 3 or 4 or 5. Because it's simple at first, and all of a sudden, it's a repetition that gets to you. It's the best thing for the stomach.
Now, what about some of the other stretching they can do that help? A lot of people have trouble with fat on the thighs. They have trouble with a lot of fat on the arms and back, and an over fat rear end.
That seems to be a problem of a lot of people. There are some excellent exercises for toning muscles. It's very hard to sculpt the body to get rid of fat. We can't really be sculptors and say, well, I'll take a little off here and a little off there.
The way to get rid of fat, of course, is to build muscle and to burn the fat off in total throughout the whole body. Of course, some of us tend to collect fat in some areas more than others, and if we're fortunate, that fat will go first. So we do want to tone muscles rather than thinking of, well, I want to lose fat from my buttocks, so I'll just work on that. We need to work on burning calories, on getting out and really exercising a lot more frequently to get rid of that excess fat. At the same time, exercising to build muscle tone. Because what we really want to change is body composition. We find that people who are just dieting, they'll lose weight, but they'll also lose muscle. But people who are exercising as well as dieting will gain muscle and lose fat. And muscle weighs more than fat, so they might not lose as much weight.
So weight isn't as important as the percentage of lean muscle tissue to body fat. Why don't you explain to the audience the importance of body composition and what it means to have 20% body fat versus 15?
Just look at some of the people who you debate against, Gary, and you'll see the difference.
That's 90% fat, all of it up here.
Well, what's important is to keep as much lean body weight as possible. And for most people, unless you exercise, it's very difficult to do. You have to watch your calorie intake and eat foods that burn much more readily. We talk a lot with athletes about their diet when they're training for marathons or long-distance endurance events, so that they can build in a lot of calories into their diet as they're expending them. But for people who are not exercising, you don't want to build up that body fat. It's the body composition that we're talking about for exercise, because when you build muscle and burn off calories at the same time, your body's going to change shape. And by body composition, not only are we talking about percentage of body fat to lean body tissue, we're talking about the way you look. Because we can show you all kinds of tables and do all types of chemical tests on your body to see how much fat you have versus lean body tissue. That might mean something to you, but what means more? What means more is what your friends say. How are you looking? How do you feel? If you've lost 20, 30 pounds, 40, 50 pounds, you're going to change a lot. You might not even lose that much weight. You might just thin down a great deal, get that waist back, get those thighs down. So exercise can do it. Now we have a lot of exercises that can build muscle in different areas, so you're stronger and you look tighter. There are some excellent gluteal exercises because people do want to slim down the
Can you give us some examples of these?
Sure.
Okay.
If you lie on your stomach and raise your foot up in the air. Now a lot of people will come up in the air with their foot, but will bring it way over their head. That will arch your back more and create some compression in the spine. We don't want to do that. We just want to come up, and what I like to do is hold my fingers under my pelvis. So I keep my pelvis down on the floor, and keep your foot going up and down, and you're going to find the gluteus maximus muscle, that's the large buttock muscle, really tightening. It's an excellent exercise. You could do it while you're watching TV or reading, and I would do it for quite a while, maybe 5 minutes of that, because it's not a strenuous exercise, but it sure will tone the large buttock muscle. Also, if you're on your side, leg raises, side leg raises are terrific, but some people make a mistake, and when they do leg raises, they swing on their back and they raise their foot up in the air. Now what happens, well, I mean they raise their foot up with their toes pointed up in the air. What happens is that you're only exercising the top of the leg. Most of us have lots of good, strong quadricep muscles because they're walking or climbing stairs. It's the buttock muscles that we're not improving generally in our day-to-day life. So if you're on your side, you want to lift your leg with your toe pointed down, heel up, so that you're really exercising this part of the buttocks and the upper leg. Excellent for reducing that area, for toning it up, and making it look a lot more firm. Another exercise that I'd like everybody to think about for posture is for their shoulders, because many people, as you get older, you start slumping forward. An awful lot of people who don't exercise have that problem. To really strengthen yourself for alignment, for posture, one of the best exercises to do, and you can do this anytime, is hold your arms out to the side. Do backward arm circles with your palms down. That will strengthen the shoulders and the upper back. Well, it will offset the tightening up front, because most of the lifting we do strengthens the front of the shoulders and the pectoral muscles, and that tightening shortens those muscles and brings you forward like this, so that you hunch over. This way it will tighten up back here and hold you straight. It's an excellent postural exercise. Now, we were talking about flexibility. It's very important to maintain your range of motion, especially athletes who are getting stronger, but because your muscles are getting tighter and shorter, you lose range of motion, and all of a sudden you can't seem to move around so comfortably. It also leads to injury. What I would like to do is show you a few stretches. One of those, the most important stretch, is for the hamstring muscles behind the leg. Because if these muscles get tight, the muscles behind the leg, it will pull on the lower back, causing back problems. So if we can keep the muscles behind the upper leg long, then that will relax the back and your back will be much healthier. Lying down flat with your head down, just bringing your foot up above you. And you can grab your calf with both hands and pull down toward you, pull to the side a little bit. You can sculpt the stretch. You can move the stretch in different parts of the muscle. It's important mostly to be stretching the belly of the muscle. From there you can move out toward the ends, but you don't want to stretch tendons or ligaments. Tendons and ligaments are dangerous to stretch because, for one thing, tendons, they're the tissues that hold the muscles to the bone, and they're quite strong, but you can tear them. They don't stretch that easily, and it's not necessary to stretch them. You can take the tension off of them by having a long muscle. Ligaments you do not want to stretch at all, because ligaments are what hold your joints together securely. Ligaments hold bone to bone. When you start stretching ligaments, you start pulling the joints apart. And once ligaments are long enough, they cannot hold the joint securely. So you've got to keep the tightness on that joint. People who are very flexible really should be doing strengthening exercises around the joint for more joint stability. People who are very flexible shouldn't be stretching that much. To be super flexible is not that important unless you're a professional dancer or gymnast. You would need that extra flexibility. Most of us just need the flexibility for our range of motion in the sports that we're in or for our day-to-day life. You can also stretch the buttocks muscle by leaning back and pulling the knee across your body, and you'll feel it stretch down in the buttocks area. Leg muscles, of course, are very important to stretch for whatever we're doing in our day-to-day life or whatever sport we're in, because we use our legs so much, and they're the largest muscles in the body. The quadricep muscles along the front can easily be stretched by lying on your stomach
and pulling your foot behind you. Just press it down into your buttocks and relax.
Now explain what that does, Peter.
That lengthens the muscles on top, in the front on top of the leg.
And why would someone want that lengthened?
As I said earlier, the more exercise we do, our muscles tighten up. When our muscles are tight, they shorten our movement. We won't have range of motion. So in order to maintain a normal range of motion for our normal activities, we need to keep lengthening the muscles as they shorten. So the main muscles in the body, the muscles that seem to do the most damage, are the quadriceps, if they're too short, are the quadriceps, the hamstrings, the calf muscles also. Let me show you an easy stretch for that. You can do that standing in place. Just put your heel down on the floor, knee forward, and push your knee forward with your heel remaining down. And you'll feel that stretch in the calf. You can also step forward farther, straighten the back leg, pressing forward on the front leg, and you'll feel the stretch in the upper calf. Those stretches for the quadriceps, hamstring, and the calf will keep your legs long and supple and take pressure off your back so that you won't develop back problems.
Peter, as a coach, you're a coach with one of the founders. You and I founded the Natural Living Running and Walking Club almost 14 years ago, and we've trained about 12,000 people who've gone into marathons. And over the years, we've seen some people who've not only learned about injuries, but overcame chronic injuries. Now, you have a few tips on how there's a new science at work determining how an ache, a pain, can be affected by a meridian in the body, an energy pathway. Could you explain that to the people?
That's called applied kinesiology. And it is something we use with our athletes to help fine-tune their bodies. Very often there are energy zones, energy systems that get blocked. And we find that if we can unblock those, injuries, well, mostly the aches and pains of normal athletic activity, will disappear. And that way we can avoid more serious injury. One of the things that I show our athletes has to do with energy in the foot that comes, actually it's nerve energy, it's part of our communication system. There are nerves along the metatarsals, within the metatarsals, that communicate to the brain when the foot lands. So as the foot lands, it registers up to the brain, "Hey brain, foot has landed!" The brain says, "Okay," tells the muscles in the leg what to do. Without that, the body doesn't know where it is. It doesn't know how to coordinate itself. The brain really has to understand all the time where the body is at, what's happening to it. So those nerves are part of a whole system within the body that communicate constantly so we know where we're at. If those are blocked, the brain doesn't receive the message. What it does is it shuts down. It shuts the body down. It says, "Hey body, if I'm not hearing from you, I don't know how to coordinate you. I'm just going to go weak. I'm going to send messages to all the muscles not to be strong enough." All right, so those muscles go weak. We don't pick that up. We try to overcome it by pushing ourselves a little harder. Say, "Oh, I'm not feeling great," but we push harder, and all of a sudden we get injured. The best thing to alleviate that, we can dig in between these metatarsals. If it's painful, we'll know then there's a problem there, and we can irritate that nerve a little bit more, and it'll help heal that. It'll create more energy flowing through there, and that communication will be made. Very often, we can use applied kinesiology to diagnose that. If I was going to press my knee down, or actually I can't do it myself, but have somebody else try to press my knee down, if my knee is strong, that's healthy because it means my quadricep is strong. Then if I wrap a hand around my foot to simulate the compression of the foot landing, and then press down, all of a sudden my knee's weak, The body's saying, okay, there's something going on down there. I don't know what it is. I'm going to shut off the energy to that muscle, to all the muscles in the body. And that's why you can't resist any pressure, because your muscles aren't functioning. So you knew that just by wrapping your hand around the foot, it's causing the body to shut down. So right there we know that's where the problem is. So we can diagnose it. Then we can rub real hard, create some irritation in there, and then try it again. And this next time, there won't be a weakness because we've actually fixed the problem.
Very similar to acupuncture, isn't it?
It works with many of the same energy systems. Acupuncture meridians are one of the systems that this uses. There are also other systems using the neurolymphatic system, the neurovascular system. There are aspects of the way the cranium breathes through coordination with the cerebral spinal fluid. It sounds complicated, but we find that we can diagnose and treat simple aches and pains in the body by understanding that and doing some breathing exercises to make corrections, and it works. It's fantastic.
Now, this is work with athletes. Do you think this would work with people with arthritis and other physical ailments?
Yes, to some extent. Of course, arthritis is a deterioration of the bone, and very often, if we're going to work with that, it needs to be handled nutritionally. This can be used as a diagnostic tool. There are doctors who we know who use this to understand how our body is assimilating nutrients, because if it's not assimilating nutrients properly, of course, then we're going to have these diseases.
Good. Thank you very much, Peter Roth.
Thank you, Gary.
My guest, Peter Roth, talking about ways that we can keep ourselves loose and limber even if we don't go to the gym. So you see, there's no excuse now for you not to start getting yourself into shape, and especially with something as simple as the abdominals. Try them, see if it works. Until next week, I'm Gary Null. Stay healthy and stay well.